Discuss the development in sculpture and architecture associated with the rise of Vaishnavism and Shaivism. Source: NCERT Class XII Themes in Indian History, Part I. Approach 1. Introduction. One can start with the brief introduction to Vaishnavism and Shaivism. X. The origin to body. Highlight how the Shaivism and Vaishnavism influence the growth of sculpture and architecture in India. 3. Conclusion. One can conclude by stating the other contributions of Shaivism and Vaishnavism to the culture and heritage. X. To painting. Answer. With the Vedic gods being relegated to the lower hierarchy, the Vishnu and Shiva came to be regarded as the chief deities with which emerged the Vaishnavism that reigns supremacy of Vishnu, and the Shaivism centered around the Shiva being supreme god during Gupta period. Both Shaivism and Vaishnavism gave impetus to the development of architecture and sculptural developments in ancient and medieval India. Sculpture. The sculptures depicted gods as grotesque figures with multiple arms and hands. They had also combination of human and animal forms. Vaishnavism. With the emergence of Dasavara friezes of Vishnu, the idols were constructed depicting these avatars to be housed in the garbhagriha of temple or to adorn the walls of temples. X. Sheshashayana Vishnu Trivikrama form Batman avatar Bhavani caves. Shaivism. Like Vishnu, Shiva also came to be represented in various forms in idols. X. Litakulasa and Manyasamriti Shiva. Elephanta caves. One of the greatest sculptures associated with Shaivism is representation of Shiva in Nataraja form. Rameshwara cave of Ellora that found finest expression in the Kolar bronze sculptures. We can see the 108 Karanas of dance being represented in form Nataraja in the Sihadambaram temple built by the Kolas. Another masterpiece of Indian sculpture associated with the Shaivism is the Raven Kikai sculpture that depicted the king raven lifting the Mount Kailash in Ellora cave. Rashtrakuta Shaivides. It is also to be noted that there came to be worship of both Shiva and Vishnu in form of Hathor that has been depicted in the sculpture of Bhavani caves. Architecture. With the emergence of Vaishnavism and Shaivism, there was brilliant development of architecture in form of cave architecture and temple architecture. Cave architecture. These are the temples were carved out of huge rocks and were dedicated to either Vishnu or Shiva or both. Vaishnavism. A Dasavara temple of Ellora. Excavated by Rashtrakuta Viraha caves of Bag. Excavated by Gupta Shaivism. The cave Lasna temple of Ellora. Excavated by Krishnadai of Rashtrakuta Elephanta caves. Excavated by Rashtrakuta Bhavani cave as depicting Shiva in Nataraja form. Dirugna Fadi cave they I hold. Excavated by Kalutyas of Bhavani. Temple architecture. Both Vishnu and Shiva temples have been built in Nagara, Dravida and Vasura styles. Nagara style. A Vaishnavism. Dasavara temple of Pilagar built during the Gupta period. Shaivism. Koh and Boomerang temple of Gupta Dravida style. A Vaishnavism. Padmanabhaswamy temple. Trivandrum Ikala temple of Hampi built by Devaraya I. Shaivism. Brihadeshwara temple of Tanjore built by Rajarajakola. Virupaksha temple at Hampi built by Devaraya I. Vasura style. A Vaishnavism. Chennakeshwara temple of Alur built by Hoysalas Bhagamarali Gudi temple of I hold of Bhavani Kalutyan. Shaivism. Ladka temple of I hold built by Bhavani Kalutyan. In addition to the sculpture and the architecture, Vaishnavism and Shaivism are also associated with the development of paintings and literature. X. Thirun derived of Mayana's Divya Prabandha of Alwars. Thus these two sects of Hinduism contributed immensely to the treasure trove of Indian culture. 9. What united Nehru and Sardar Patel was more significant and of abiding value than what divided them. Elaborate. Source: India since independence. Batan Chandra Chapter 14. Approach 1. Introduction. Brief hint about the nature of personality of Nehru and Patel. 2. Body: answer can be done in 2 parts. First part highlighting the differences between 2 leaders, and second part the fundamental unity between 2. 3. Conclusion. We can conclude by stating how the contrasting nature of these 2 leaders was necessary for the newly born democracy. Answer. A newly born India had 2 greater leaders at its service, one visionary and idealist, Nehru, and the other the pragmatist and realist, Patel. These stalwarts undoubtedly differed in their temperament and political ideologies. 1. Economic policy. Nehru envisioned the socialist India with social service and cooperation taking place of competition. He replicated the Soviet Planning Commission and its 5-year plans while severely restricting the scope of private enterprise. Patel, on the other hand, believed that capitalism could be purged of its hideousness. He did not view the spirit of enterprise with disdain. For him, creation of wealth for ushering in societal prosperity was a desirable trait. Patel also emphatically denied the inevitability of class struggle, which was an article of faith for the Marxists. Patel affirmed his faith in the capitalists, industrialists, and economists who, when approached in the right manner, offered promising prospects for both production and just remuneration for labor. To foreign policy, while Nehru was internationalist in his outlook, Patel was more inclined towards nationalist approach. This, along with the pragmatism, made Patel to support the recognition for the Israel, oppose India relinquishing the rights over Tibet in favor of China. 3. Military policy. While Patel stood for modernization of Indian army, Nehru, with more idealist approach, wouldn't be able to perceive the security threats entering over India from its neighbors, and hence wasn't in support of the same. For political ideology, Nehru was a believer of liberalism and came to be associated with the leftists of Congress. On the other hand, Patel was conservative in his political ideology and was part of right wing of Congress. While Nehru wanted the unification of the country by democratic way, Patel didn't hesitate to use other ways like police action and military action to achieve the unification of India. In addition, while Nehru gave expression to the Congress ideology and the vision of India, Patel was organizational man who worked in the background. But in those defining years, what united them was far more important than what divided them. 1. Politicians with impeccable integrity. Nehru and Patel both enjoyed the great respect and legitimacy among people, and also the congressmen. Both were known for their determination as well as the integrity. It made both the leaders to bring in consensus among congressmen on conflicting issues, which was much needed for the nascent democracy. To deep love of their country, both the leaders were fierce patriots who had always placed country and welfare of countrymen above their interests. 3. Abiding commitment to India's unity. Nehru and Sardar stood for and defended the unity of India not only during the national struggle but also after the independence. It is because of Nehru's opposition that Wavel's Balkan plan was withdrawn. On the other hand, it's Patel who achieved the unification of India to complete the map of united India after independence. For faith in Mahatma Gandhi, both Nehru and Patel acknowledged the leadership of Gandhi and reposed faith in Gandhian methods of struggle. 5. Belief in constitutionalism. Nehru and Patel both wanted to establish India as sovereign, democratic republic on strong edifice of constitution. Both being members of Constituent Assembly and heads of committees, played the vital role in drafting Constitution of India. While Nehru drafted the objective resolution, Patel played vital role in drafting fundamental right provision of Indian Constitution. 6. Protection of minorities. Both Nehru and Patel championed causes of minorities. Nehru, with his secular approach, played an important role in integration of Indian Muslims. It is to be remembered that it is Patel who was the chairman of Committee on Fundamental Rights and Welfare of Minorities in the Constituent Assembly. 7. Both were untiring workers, allowing themselves practically no rest, either physical or mental. All these factors made both the leaders to share love and respect for each other and work together for betterment of country. Though there were differences, these fundamental unity bonded two leaders to each other. Thus we can say Nehru and Patel are like great diamonds. Was this difference that if Sardar Patel is rough-hewn, valued intrinsically high, Nehru is the finished product, cut with many facets and therefore shining in many directions. It is to the good fortune of the country that it had handed Nehru and Sardar Patel, two personalities who have characteristics each complementary to each other, for never has there been a combination of humanism and realism so complete as in Jawaharlal Lal and Vallabhbhai. 10. Maoism was an attempt at land reform, that bringing about institutional changes in agriculture through a movement and not simply through government legislation. Discuss. Source: India since independence. Bankim Chandra, Chapter 31. Approach. 1. Introduction. We can write about the brief history of Maoism. 2. Body. Highlight the major changes in the institutions brought by the Maoism. Here emphasize on how these changes are brought without legislation. 3. Conclusion. One can conclude by highlighting the success of Maoism, though there were shortcomings. Answer. Maoism movement, started by the Banaba Beg in 1951, was a land reform movement aimed at bringing about institutional changes in agriculture through a movement and not simply through government legislation via voluntary land donations. It drew upon Gandhian techniques and ideas such as constructive work and trusteeship. If the landlords failed to behave as trustees or as equal sharing of property, then a satyagriha, in the Gandhian mold, could be launched against them. Confederation of Constructive Workers was organized called Sarvade Assam, who would do paydiatra from village to village and persuade landlords to give up their land to the landless and force. The movement was quite successful in the start, and about 4 million hectares land was given by landlords. This resulted in changes like one social institution. The movement tried to bring about a social order based on equality of opportunities by ensuring balanced economic distribution. To some extent, it also helped in reducing exploitation of the poor cultivators by the rich zamindars. 2. Economic structure. It brought in decentralization of economic holdings and powers by undertaking redistribution of land from landlords to the landless laborers. 3. It aided in the direction of tax burden. When no compensation amount is to be paid, less amount will be needed on that account, which means less burden, which when viewed in Indian context where the people are already overtaxed, for it helped in bringing more land under plow. Even uncultivable land is cultivated. The movement was christened into Grand Dam movement in the late 1950s. Although there are shortcomings like most lands donated being infertile or under litigation, Bowden movement acquires great significance in the context of urgent change. It underlines traditions that are implicit in the Indian way of life. It recaptures the idea of the social order based on equality. 11. The historical evidence on the Tiger of Mysore Tipu Sultan can be read as competing narratives ranging between visionary to freedom fighter to bigot. Discuss critically relevance and significance of such narratives today. Approach. 1. Introduction. Bring in the contradiction in the narrative of Tipu to body. The answer can be written in 2 sections. First has to deal with the narrative of Tipu being visionary leader and freedom fighter. And the second part should bring in the narrative of Tipu being the bigot while bringing in the secular portrayal of Tipu. Each part has to be substantiated with the relevance and significance in today's world. 3. Conclusion. It has to be in positive line highlighting the first narrative of Tipu. Answer. True nature of a person like Tipu can only be found by the way of looking at achievements and failures without judging him on socio-political, religious and cultural point of view, but judging one on moral, ethical and visionary point of view. Visionary leader and freedom fighter. The Silver Pages of history remembers Tipu Sultan as the Tiger of Mysore who fought against the major powers back in his time like the brave and courageous soldier. In addition to being a brilliant general, he was also a radical economic and social reformer and a great geostrategist that testifies his being visionary and an able administrator. 1. Military reforms. Tipu Sultan was a great believer in the modern system of militarization. He armed infantry with musket and bayonet manufactured in Mysore. He understood the importance of blue water navy that gave supremacy to British. He modernized the naval forces after 1796 and also built dockyards. These reforms still hold beat in light for India owing to the India's geographical position in proximity to the global terrorism center and India being the largest importer of arms. SIPR, I report. The rising threat to the maritime freedom calls for the modernization of Indian Navy given 90% of our trade by volume is carried out via sea route and it holds important energy and communication lines for the country. To revenue and peasant reforms, he devised a land revenue system based on detailed surveys and classification, in which the tax was imposed directly on the peasant, and collected through salaried agents in cash, widening the state's resource base. He also modernized agriculture, gave tax breaks for developing wasteland, built irrigation infrastructure and repaired old dams, checked illegal cess and promoted agricultural manufacturing and sericulture. All this has made peasants of Mysore stay prosperous, and his revenue system became basis for riot-worry system movement road. Even today the agriculture forms the basis of livelihood of 50% of our population and is backbone of village economy. The problem of intermediaries, rind, agriculture, dearth of markets, etc. still continues to haunt the Indian peasants. Though there were reforms like Ethasavama Yojana, Binam, Krishi Sanchai Yojana, the reforms brought by Tipu are still relevant today, which can be adopted based on the agroecological characteristics of region. 3. Trade and industrial policy. Tipu commissioned a state commercial corporation to set up factories. As Mysore traded in sandalwood, silk, spices, rice and sulfur, some 30 trading outposts were established across Tipu's dominions and overseas. Sugar and paper factories were established for the first time under him. Sword, blades and gunpowder were manufactured locally. He also set up trading company was set up on the lines of European companies. Tipu had established trading houses for Mysore products worldwide in France, Turkey, Iran, China to expand the trade. These factories provided employment and income generating opportunities to the people and motivated the manufacturers to produce quality goods and services and achieved acclaim beyond India and earned profits through exports. With the India's manufacturing sector witnessing the slow growth and the need for India to expand employment opportunity for the youth, the Industrial Revolution of Mysore brought by Tipu still remains relevant. For international outlook, Tipu was a statesman who supported the American War of Independence financially and also morally and took interest in the French Revolution. He was the first Asian ruler to recognize the newly independent United States. He became member of Jacobean Club and also planted Liberty Tree at Siren Gap. He also tried building relation with the Ottoman Turk. The diplomacy being the important tool of today's multipolar world, this international outlook of Tipu and his acumen of geostrategy is worth emulating. 5. Technological innovator of India. The rockets of Tipu were prototype of the modern missile system. In addition, he introduced the new calendar, coinage, new scale of weight and measures. This technological vision of Tipu is still inspiration for India given the upcoming era of fourth industrial revolution where technology will be the key driver of economy and the emerging challenges like security threats, cyber attacks, new health issues, antimicrobial resistance, etc. 6. Social reform. He introduced social reforms both among Hindus and Muslims. X. Strict ban on the nonsensical and anti-Islamic practices among the Muslims. Forbid the human sacrifice in temple X. Kali Temple of Mysore. With the social evils like dowry, child marriage, female feticide still prevailing in the Indian society, these reforms of Tipu stand out till today. Even in personal life, Tipu was free from vices and avoided luxury, which is of worth emulation for the public servants. Narrative of Tipu being bigot. In another different narrative, Tipu is being projected as the religious bigot. 1. Demolition of places of worship of Hindu and Christian. The historian William Logan has mentioned in the Malabar Manual that Valiparamba and Trikambadram temples of Shirapal Taluka, Pond Mary Temple of Badakkara, and Thiruvengaju of Talakere were among the major temples smashed by Tipu Sultan. 2. There are also written records of forced conversion to Islam and religious prosecution of Hindus and Christians in the Kodagu, Thrissur and Cochin. But there is a dispute among historians in the narrative of Tipu being bigot, as there were evidences to support the tolerant attitude of Tipu. 1. Tipu had rebuilt Hindu temples that were destroyed and built by the Hindu Maratha army in his kingdom. X. Srirai Temple. 2. He gave grants and gifts to the temples. X. Melghat Temple. 3. Tipu had close contact with the Srirai Mat, and the letters Tipu wrote show reference to the saints and priests of Hinduism. This shows high esteem in which Tipu held the Hindu holy men of his kingdom. For Tipu had appointed the Hindus to the post of high officials X. Ornamayan as finance minister and also maintained learned Brahmins as civil officials. 5. Tipu respected the religious practice of all. All non-Muslims, Hindus and Christians alike, were free to follow their own religion. For example, he instructed that his non-Muslim officers be guaranteed that the food provided to them would meet their religious requirements and that they be allowed to take their oaths of office according to their own religious beliefs. While this tolerant image of Tipu is significant today amid the rise of religious fundamentalism, the religious bigot image of Tipu is lighting new fire in the secular fabric of country. The historical evidence on the Tiger of Mysore can be read as competing narratives. It serves no purpose to view Tipu's multi-layered personality through the prism of religion. What is more important in his progressive reforms of the period and the bravest resistance he put up against the dominant foreign power of the time, against all the odds of the time.